There are moments in life when God doesn't simply send a word, a sign, or a blessing from afar. He comes himself. This is one of those moments. This isn't about crowds or public miracles. This isn't about sermons in the square or voices in the wilderness. This is about him stepping into your room, your season, and your heart. He's not coming to meet your reputation. He's not coming to impress an audience. He's coming because he sees the cracks no one else sees, the questions no one else hears, and the tears no one else counts. This time it's deeply personal. When God comes in this way, he doesn't knock politely at the edges of your life. He walks straight into the center. He rearranges, restores, and resurrects. He looks into your eyes and makes it clear, I'm not just the God of nations, I'm the God of you. This visit may not be loud, but it will be life-altering. The whispers will carry more weight than thunder, and the touch will heal more than medicine ever could. You won't just hear about his goodness, you will taste it. You won't just believe in his nearness, you will feel it pressing against your very soul, and when he leaves, you will never see the world the same again, because once he has made it personal, you can never go back to distant faith. This time, he's not speaking to the crowd, he's speaking to you. There is a weight to those words that demands you pause, because when the Almighty turns his full attention toward one soul, it is no small thing. For years, perhaps, you have listened in the distance. You have stood among the crowd, hearing truth echo over many heads before it finally reached yours, diluted by the journey it took to get there. You have nodded along, agreeing in principle, but never feeling as though the words were carved with your name upon them. You've heard sermons that seemed meant for someone else's struggle, someone else's need, someone else's journey. But now, the season has shifted and heaven's address has narrowed its focus, not to the multitude but to you. When God speaks to the crowd, the words are broad and sweeping. They carry power, yes, but they are cast like seed over many fields. Some will take root, some will wither, and some will be trampled. But when he speaks to you, the seed is not scattered. It is planted with precision in the soil of your life. He doesn't shout across the noise. He draws close enough to whisper, so that only you can hear. It's not that the crowd is excluded, but that in this moment, your heart has his undivided attention. The Creator of galaxies has paused the infinite to speak into the finite space of your soul. You may feel unworthy of such attention, unsure of why he would choose now, or why he would choose you. That is the mystery of grace. It rarely chooses the moment we expect. Perhaps this is coming at a time when you feel least prepared, least spiritual, least capable of receiving anything holy. But God's choice is never based on your readiness. It is anchored in his timing. He has seen every unseen tear, every whispered doubt, every weary sigh that no one else noticed. He has been watching the moments when you felt invisible, and now he steps into that hidden space to say, I see you. When he speaks personally, his voice pierces deeper than it ever could when heard from a distance. It cuts past the layers you've built to protect yourself, the polite responses, the religious habits, the carefully constructed image you present to others. His words travel past all that and find the core of you, the part of you that longs to be known yet fears the vulnerability of being fully seen. This is why his voice can be both comforting and unsettling at the same time. Comforting because you know it's love. Unsettling because you realize there is no longer anywhere to hide. You may find that in this personal word, he is not merely affirming what you already believe. He may be calling out what you have avoided, challenging patterns you have allowed to linger, inviting you into places you never thought you would walk. His personal speaking is not always about soothing. Sometimes it is about shaking. And yet even his shaking is an act of love, because he knows that the structures you have built in self-defense are also the walls keeping you from freedom. In these moments, you must resist the urge to compare your encounter with anyone else's. The crowd may still be receiving their own messages, but theirs are not yours. God is speaking into your specific history, your private battles, your unique calling. What he says to you may not make sense to others, and that is perfectly fine. This conversation was not meant to be approved by the crowd. It was meant to transform you. There is also an intimacy to this kind of speaking that leaves a permanent imprint. Once you have been addressed in this way, you cannot go back to pretending faith is an abstract idea. You will remember the sound of his nearness, the unmistakable feeling that heaven bent low enough to breathe into your situation. It is this memory that will sustain you when the noise of life returns. The crowd may be loud, opinions may swirl, doubts may whisper again, but you will hold on to the moment when God's voice cut through it all and found you. And so, when he speaks now, do not brush it aside as though it were meant for someone else. Do not push it into the general category of good teaching or inspiring thought. This is not merely a lesson to be learned, it is a summons to be answered. He is not inviting the crowd into this moment. He is inviting you, and to ignore that is to turn away from the very thing you have been unknowingly waiting for. He is speaking now, and the sound is unmistakably personal. There is no escape from its reach, no shelter from its truth, no substitute for its presence. This is not about a collective blessing, a shared word, or a public move. This is about a God who could have spoken to the world, but chose instead to call your name. He is not coming to fix your image, but to heal your reality. That is the nature of his love. It refuses to settle for the surface. God has no interest in polishing the outer version of you that the world applauds, while the inner you slowly unravels. He is not captivated by the image you've learned to maintain, the rehearsed smiles, the well-timed words, or the posture of strength you present to others. He is after something deeper, something more enduring than appearances. He is after the truth of who you are, the unedited version, the one that only he and you truly know. We spend much of our lives managing how we appear to others. We know how to frame our successes so they shine, and how to hide our wounds so they do not betray our weakness. We understand the unwritten rules of image, keep the cracks hidden, keep the tone confident, keep the story neat. But God is not bound by those rules. He doesn't step into your life to protect your reputation. He steps in to redeem your reality. And that reality may be far messier, far more fragile, and far more complicated than the image would suggest. The truth is, images can fool people, but they can never heal you. You can live decades behind a curated exterior and still wake up every day feeling hollow. You can present strength in public yet collapse in private. You can be admired for your resilience, and yet know in the deepest part of yourself that you are surviving, not thriving. That is why his love refuses to leave you there. He will not put a fresh coat of paint on a structure that is crumbling inside. He will not settle for helping you hold it together for appearances, while the foundation beneath you is fractured. When God begins to heal your reality, it can be disorienting. He will reach past the polished front and begin touching the places you'd rather no one see. He will put his hands on wounds you've learned to hide, so well that you've almost forgotten they were there. He will address the bitterness you've buried, the grief you've numbed, the fears you've disguised as ambition. His touch will not always feel comfortable, because comfort is not the goal, freedom is. And freedom rarely comes without first confronting the things that have been controlling you. This healing may disrupt the image you've worked so hard to protect. Some people may notice changes they do not understand. They may see your vulnerability as weakness, your honesty as loss of control, your transformation as unnecessary. But remember, he is not coming for them. He is coming for you, and you will discover that his work in your reality is infinitely more valuable than their approval of your image. In time, you will begin to see the difference. You will no longer wake up exhausted from keeping up appearances. You will stop fearing the moment when someone might see through your facade, because there will be nothing to hide. You will start living from a place of wholeness rather than performance. And the joy that comes from that freedom will not be the kind that depends on how others perceive you. It will be the kind that remains, even when no one is watching. God's aim is not to make you look better, it is to make you whole. He will not settle for treating symptoms when he can heal the disease. He will not offer you temporary relief when he can give you lasting restoration. And he will not waste his time repairing an image that was never meant to bear the weight of your worth in the first place. His desire is to meet you in the truth of your reality and bring healing that changes not just how you look to others, but how you live before Him. Once you have tasted that kind of transformation, the image will no longer hold the same power over you. You will realize that appearances can win applause, but reality is where God's glory rests, and you will gladly trade the fragile security of looking whole for the unshakable peace of actually being whole. Personal encounters change what sermons cannot. You can listen to thousands of sermons in your lifetime, each one filled with truth, wisdom, and insight, and still find that parts of your heart remain untouched. A sermon can reach your ears, stir your mind, and even inspire your will. But there is something different, something sacred, about the moments when God steps beyond the words and meets you face to face in the secret places of your soul. In those moments, truth is no longer an idea you agree with, it becomes a reality you experience. Sermons can tell you that God loves you, but a personal encounter makes that love undeniable. You might have believed in His mercy because you read it in Scripture, but when He comes to you in a moment of deep failure and wraps you in His grace, mercy stops being a doctrine. It becomes the very air you breathe. You might have agreed that God heals, but when His presence floods the room and lifts the weight of despair or pain that you have carried for years, healing is no longer a theory, it's a lived reality. When God meets you personally, it is not just about hearing something, it is about being changed by it. The word moves from being information to being transformation. That transformation happens because His voice in those moments does not compete with any other noise. It is not filtered through a microphone or diluted by the needs of a crowd. It is as if heaven bends low, looks you in the eye, and says, "This is for you." And when that happens, the effect is so deep that no amount of intellectual argument or life's storms can erase it. Think of it this way. Sermons are like sunlight. They illuminate, they warm, they help life grow. But personal encounters are like fire. They consume, they refine, they change the very nature of what they touch. Sunlight can encourage growth, but fire can turn metal into something pure and stronger. A personal encounter with God can do in moments what 100 sermons could never accomplish, because it bypasses your defenses, your reasoning, and your excuses, and goes straight to the heart. Such encounters are rarely convenient. They often happen when you are most desperate, most weary, or most broken. Sometimes they occur in the quiet solitude of prayer. Other times, they crash into your life in unexpected places. A hospital room, a late night drive, a moment of absolute surrender when you least expect it. In these moments, you do not have to wonder if it was God. The weight of His presence and the intimacy of His voice leave no room for doubt. And when you walk away from such an encounter, you are not simply inspired, you are altered. You cannot go back to the way things were because you have seen too much, felt too much, and known too deeply. It is not that sermons lose their value. In fact, they gain new depth after such moments. The same words you once heard with your mind, you now hear with your spirit, and they take on a richness that only comes from having met the author personally. This is why personal encounters matter so much. They anchor you in ways that words alone cannot. A sermon can remind you of truth, but an encounter can brand that truth into your very being. And in the days when faith feels fragile, when doubts creep in, and when the noise of life tries to drown out your hope, it will not be mere words you hold on to. It will be the memory of the God who met you personally and left you forever changed. This visit will not be rushed. God is not in a hurry when He comes to do a deep work in you. He is not bound by the pace of your calendar, the pressure of your deadlines, or the anxious clock you keep in your heart. We often live in a world where everything is urgent. Messages must be answered instantly, problems solved quickly, and progress measured daily. But heaven's timing is not dictated by earth's impatience. When God draws near for a personal visitation, He comes with eternity in His hands, not a stopwatch. We might want Him to move quickly because our discomfort feels unbearable. We pray for instant relief, instant change, instant clarity, but God knows that rushing can ruin the very work we are asking Him to do. A seed forced to grow too soon will not have deep enough roots to survive the storm. A wound stitched before it is properly cleaned will only fester beneath the surface. Likewise, God refuses to rush what must be healed at the deepest levels of your soul. He loves you too much to offer a quick fix when what you need is lasting transformation. When He comes in this way, His presence lingers, not because He is slow, but because He is thorough. He will wait with you in the place of your questions. He will sit with you in the tension between your prayer and the answer. He will walk with you through the rooms of your heart, pausing in each one until the work there is complete. He will not be moved by your fear that others are getting ahead of you or that you are falling behind. His eyes are not on the competition around you, but on the completion within you. This kind of divine slowness is not delay, it is precision. Every conversation He has with your spirit is intentional. Every moment of stillness is filled with unseen work. He is untangling knots you cannot see, healing layers you didn't know existed, and fortifying you for a future you cannot yet imagine. And though it may feel to you like nothing is happening, heaven is never still when God is near. The danger is that we might try to rush Him. We might attempt to move ahead of His timing, to declare ourselves ready before He has finished. But rushing out of His presence prematurely is like walking out of a hospital before the surgery is over. It may feel like freedom for a moment, but you carry with you the wound unhealed. There is a grace in staying still, in letting Him finish, in resisting the urge to demand a faster miracle. You will find, in the end, that the length of the visit was not a burden, but a gift. What seemed slow in the moment will feel perfectly timed in hindsight. The very patience that stretched you will become the foundation that holds you steady in the days ahead. Because when God finishes His work, it will be so complete that there will be no need to revisit the same wound again. This visit will not be rushed, because He knows you cannot be made whole in a hurry. He knows the depth of your need, the complexity of your story, and the strength you will require for what's coming next. And when it is over, you will not just have received an answer. You will have been remade in the waiting. He comes to answer prayers you forgot you prayed. There are petitions you whispered long ago, moments when your heart reached for heaven in desperation or hope, and then life moved on. Seasons changed. Other concerns took their place. Perhaps disappointment set in, convincing you that some prayers were best left in the past. You might have even convinced yourself that you were foolish to ask, that the moment had passed, or that God had chosen to say nothing at all. But your forgetting is not His forgetting. Every word you ever breathed toward Him has been heard, recorded, and held in the chambers of eternity until the time was right. We often think of prayer as fragile, spoken once and then gone, dependent on our constant repetition to keep it alive. But in God's hands, prayers are seeds. You may plant them in a moment of faith and walk away without seeing anything for years, even decades. Yet beneath the surface, unseen roots have been forming, conditions aligning, the soil preparing for the day when it will break through. What you thought was silence was actually cultivation. Sometimes the delay is mercy. Had the answer come when you asked, you might not have been ready to receive it. Your character might have been unsteady, your circumstances unprepared, or your understanding too shallow to carry what you requested. God's "not yet" was never a denial, it was protection. He knew that a blessing given too soon can crush rather than strengthen. So He tucked your prayer into the vault of His perfect timing and waited until the moment when both you and the blessing were ready to meet. And then, often when you least expect it, He comes. Not with a vague gesture or a symbolic encouragement, but with the exact answer you once longed for and thought you'd lost. It may come wrapped in a different form than you imagined, but as soon as you see it, something in your spirit recognizes it. You remember. You recall the night you wept those words, the day you dared to hope for that breakthrough, the quiet hour you asked Him for that very thing, and you realize He never forgot. This kind of answer carries a power beyond the gift itself. It restores your faith in the God who listens even when you've stopped speaking. It reminds you that nothing you entrust to Him is ever wasted. It shows you that time does not diminish the potency of prayer. In fact, time often magnifies its impact. The years between asking and receiving become a testimony in themselves, a story of trust sustained, even unknowingly, over the long stretch of waiting. There is also a tenderness in such answers, because they feel like a conversation resumed after a long pause. God steps into your present and reopens a dialogue you thought had ended. In doing so, he proves that his relationship with you is not transactional or fleeting. It is continuous, attentive, and deeply personal. So when he comes in this way, it is more than just a moment of blessing. It is a revelation. You see that every whispered plea mattered. Every unpolished, half-formed request reached him. Every sigh, every "help me," every "please," spoken through tears was heard and kept alive in the heart of the one who never forgets. And when he finally places the answer in your hands, you realize that you are holding not just the fulfillment of a request, but the evidence of a love that has been faithful all along. After this, you will never see him as distant again. Once you have experienced God in a way that is undeniably personal, the idea of him being far away becomes impossible to believe. You may still walk through dark seasons, still face unanswered questions, still encounter storms that test your faith. But something inside you will have shifted forever. You will no longer pray as if your words are drifting into an empty sky. You will speak as one who has seen his eyes, heard his whisper, and felt the unmistakable weight of his presence in the room. There is a kind of nearness that changes everything. It's not the intellectual awareness that God is everywhere. Most of us have known that since childhood. It's the heart-level certainty that he has been here with you, in your story, moving with intentional care through the moments no one else could touch. You will remember how he showed up. Not for a crowd, not as an idea, but as a person who stepped into the exact details of your life. That memory becomes an anchor. No matter how high the waves rise, it keeps you from being swept away. This kind of encounter redefines prayer. You will no longer measure the effectiveness of your prayers by how quickly you see an answer. You will measure it by the awareness of his presence in the asking. Prayer will stop being a religious exercise and become a living conversation. You will know that you are not trying to get his attention. You already have it. You will speak to him the way you speak to a trusted friend who has proven, without question, that he listens. You will also find that worship changes. It will no longer be something you do to feel close to him. It will be the natural overflow of knowing he is already close. Songs will mean more, because they are no longer declarations you hope to be true. They are responses to what you have already tasted and seen. And in the quiet, when no song is playing, your spirit will still hum with the awareness that he is here. Even in seasons where his presence feels less obvious, you will not mistake the silence for absence. You will remember the day he broke through your doubts, the night he met you in your weakness, the hour he answered in a way that made it clear he had been listening all along. That history with him will speak louder than the temporary feelings of distance. And perhaps most profoundly, you will see yourself differently. If he has drawn near to you in such a personal way, then you are no longer just one among many. You are the one he sought, the one he knew by name, the one whose tears he counted, and whose prayers he remembered. His nearness confirms your worth in a way no human affirmation ever could. So after this moment, after this visit, this touch, this undeniable nearness, you will never again be able to convince yourself that he is far away. Distance will become an illusion you no longer believe in. You will walk forward knowing, with quiet but unshakable certainty, that the God who came so close once will never leave you again.